Hi there mate, how's it going? It's Benja here, and this is a breakdown and review of 1883 episode 3 titled River. We open this one up with a montage of deaths. We've got various wagon accidents and snake attacks which regularly kill immigrants. Elsa reveals that with every death, her father James moves the Dutton camp farther away from the main group, as if carelessness was its own disease. But one thing scares the group more than anything else: River. Snake attacks are usually isolated. You can fight bandits off if there aren't too many of them. Sickness isn't always contagious, and if it is, you can leave the sick behind and hope for the best. So for the most part, the wagon train can deal with those problems and move on. What they can't easily deal with, however, is coming across a river that's a little bit too deep. If the wagons can't cross the river, it could delay the journey for days, if not for weeks. That is the conundrum Shea and James are facing at the start of episode 3. James thinks they should head west and go up north from there, while Shea is wary of this idea because West Texas is too dangerous for this group. Too many bandits are out there, water is a problem, and so is the reservation. That's why he wants to head east and take the ferry in the city of Denison to cross the Red River. James makes it clear that he doesn't work for Shea, so he'll do whatever he'd like. He's gonna go west. This butting of heads is definitely interesting from a dramatic standpoint, because both of these men are leaders. Shea is responsible for the group, while James only cares about his own family. That's why James feels like he can question Shea's authority and judgment, and I liked watching this first conflict between them. Thomas chimes in to say that going east would mean losing a lot of valuable time before winter, but Shea points out that if they go west, they'll have to cross the Brazos River, and Thomas responds by telling him that yes, there are no good options, but winter is the worst option. So Thomas agrees with James that they shouldn't go east to delay this journey. The amount of time they would lose because of that would be a death sentence for the immigrants in winter. Coming up with dilemmas is a surefire way to keep the story engaging and fun to follow. So introducing this storyline before they're even able to leave Texas keeps the viewers on the edge of their seats. You never know what kind of problems these characters will face each week because they're going into the wilderness. And depicting that dangerously unpredictable reality is something Taylor Sheridan has done expertly so far in 1883. Moving on to the Dutton family, Margaret and Elsa help Ennis and Wade hold the cattle herd because the other cowboys who were temporarily helping the convoy are going back to base. James and John in the meantime go hunting, and this was my favorite sequence of the episode, minus the fact that James' rifle had no recoil at all. We will let that slide, but it was pretty bad. Even though James tells John to keep it quiet, not to scare away the deer, John can't help himself because he's a kid, so he keeps asking questions, which was just hilarious because it was entirely realistic. Whenever James would answer a question, John would just ask another one, this time about the answer itself, and I had a smile on my face throughout this exchange. James eventually spots a deer and lets John pull the trigger as he gets his first kill, which is why James bloods John when they get to the deer, saying, quote, "You took a life to give us life," end quote. And I think that's important to keep in mind. They're hunting for food. I'm not a fan of hunting for hunting's sake, but hunting for food I can get behind. It's been a while since I went hunting, but eating what you hunt yourself is a completely different feeling, and I think the show handled this sequence pretty well, except obviously the weird way they handled the rifle. James and John get back to camp where Shea is waiting for them. He has stoked the fire so James can immediately start cooking. James asks Shea if he is hungry. He says he's never turned down fresh meat, but at the end of the conversation, James doesn't offer Shea any meat. That is just rude, but I think it tells you what type of a person James is and what his relationship with Shea is like. As we said before, the only thing James cares about in this world is his family, and when Shea says he can't have James questioning his authority, James doesn't react so well. That's kind of why he doesn't share the meat. In the end, they decide to go west. Shea will head out first and James will follow him with the herd, though Shea at first wanted James to go ahead and get a head start. James refused. Sam Elliott and Tim McGraw were excellent in this episode and I thoroughly enjoyed their back and forth. I love how they're not trying to make James a pleasant character. Not every protagonist has to be a nice and sweet teddy bear, and I think the direction they're taking James is a good one. Shea also has to deal with a widow who has lost her husband during the bandit attack at the end of episode 3. Her name is Noemi, not Naomi. She has no idea how to deal with her wagon or her horses, so she's having a bit of a nervous breakdown. Thomas and Shea see this and help her out. Noemi immediately wants to become Shea's wife because in her situation, you need a man that'll take care of you. Noemi knows that. However, Shea stops her advances and he says they don't have to marry, he'll help her and her kids. Thomas enters the fray following this exchange, and he's just the best, this Thomas fella, probably the MVP of this episode. First he jokes around with Shea about how lucky Noemi is because she doesn't have to deal with Shea. Shea isn't amused, so Thomas cracks another joke, and this scene had me smiling from ear to ear. Then Thomas approaches Noemi to assure her that whenever they get to Oregon, men will court her and she'll have a new family. Thomas also points out that she shouldn't want anything to do with Shea because happiness runs from him like a scolded dog. Then they learn that a bunch of men took Noemi's food, so they pay these lucky guys a visit. They claim Noemi's husband was a thief and stole the food from them, but Shea doesn't care about that. They stole from a widow. Shea beats them up, wrecks their wagon, and tells them they're no longer part of this convoy. One of these guys is too brave for his own good, as he finds himself in the middle of a standoff with Shea later on in the episode. It doesn't look like he's handled any guns before, so Shea's got him dead to rights and approaches him, saying that he's fired his rifle so many times around these parts, his barrel melted, so he killed with his pistol, and when he ran out of bullets, he killed with his sword, and when his sword broke, he killed with his boots and bare hands. Shea is referencing the Civil War days when he was a Union captain, and Sam Elliott's delivery is simply haunting. That unmistakable voice sends a shiver down your spine, which is why this guy breaks down in front of everybody. Shea had warned them that he'd kill them if they ever came back, but he doesn't go through with the deed because that would turn the immigrant group against them. Thomas and Shea had a conversation about optics earlier in the episode, and here Shea takes Thomas's advice by not killing these men in front of everybody. I don't want to say Sam Elliott is carrying this show, because the rest of the cast is doing a good job as well, and I like almost every single character, but Elliott is on a whole different level. On his own, he's enough to make 1883 a must-watch. Last but not least, James tells Ennis that he can court Elsa. I liked how Ennis tried to crack a joke and James gave him a deadly look, so Ennis was like, oh crap, I'm in trouble here. So this romance is building up a head of steam, which I'm fine with. I think all the scenes featuring Elsa and Ennis are incredibly cute, so yeah. When it comes to my final thoughts on the episode, I expected it to slow things down a little bit after the first 2 episodes, which were bonkers, and it did slow down here, which was a good thing. There were quite a few one-on-one moments I enjoyed. Thomas was fleshed out. Shea and James going at it was fun to watch. Elsa's internal monologue wasn't that intrusive, except the one in the middle of the episode. The hunting scene was awesome. The Noemi storyline allowed Shea to showcase his badassery once again, so that was nice, and that's about it. 1883 has become my favorite new show of the year. It feels incredibly grounded and immersive. I just want to binge dozens of episodes, but we gotta do this weekly. I hope it continues to rock, because I think this is some of Taylor Sheridan's best work. Well, what did you think about episode 3? Leave your comments down below, like this video if you've enjoyed this breakdown, and subscribe for more movie reviews and TV show breakdowns. That's it for now, take care and see you in the next video.